I'm glad everybody was able to come on today. I want to start off with thanking the New Mexico Short-Term Rental Association for having me help out and teach this webinar. Today, we're going to go over party protocol and Airbnb safety. I'm going to be teaching you how to protect your property remotely. And here's what's ahead, guys. Why this class matters so much. Keep your Airbnb safe even remotely. Controlling the narrative of Airbnb, which is super important in one of our missions over here at the New Mexico Short-Term Rental Association. And what you'll learn today is the tools, guest screening, automation, and most importantly, you'll be getting my party protocol SOP to help if a party does happen, and also teach you how to prevent those parties. So you'll be learning the tools and systems to protect your short-term rental. I'll be teaching you guys today how to screen and vet guests effectively, and also have all these automations, which are really important so that you're not constantly always looking at your phone and trying to see, if anybody's having a party at your property. And then at the end, we'll be reviewing the party protocol checklist. My experience and why I feel like I have the ability to help you guys out today. I have over 1,500 reviews on Airbnb currently. I've always maintained over a 4.8 rating. Been doing Airbnb for about 8 years now. I hosted my first remote Airbnb 4 years ago. Remote to me is some place that you can't drive to, and my first one was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm originally from Denver, Colorado. And currently I host 5 properties remotely outside of Denver. I've hosted 9 properties through COVID and maintained all of them and didn't have to shut any of them down. So I want to start off first as I want everybody to realize that when you become a host, you need to take responsibility as a host. Don't forget that you wanted to be a host. You signed up, you bought this property, or you rented this property, you designed it, and you wanted to become a host. And this is your house and your vision that you created. So we want to take responsibility in the design of the property and how we run the property. This is a business, so treat it as one. I feel that it's a very low entry to get into this business, and sometimes people don't treat it as a business, and they just want to put furniture in a property and throw it on Airbnb and set it and forget it. And we have to have SOPs and standard operating procedures and protocols and run this as a real business. You have a responsibility as a business owner and a host to make sure that you are taking in the right guests and putting out the right product. If we don't regulate ourselves, someone else will. And here at the New Mexico Short-Term Rental Association, we want to empower our hosts throughout New Mexico so that we have good hosts. If we have good hosts, we usually tend to get good guests. And then we are able to control the narrative and regulate ourselves and not let big governments or the hotel association or anyone else determine, how we need to run our properties. Create a space or a product you enjoy hosting. And what I mean by product is I use that word a lot. I feel that every Airbnb is a separate product. If you have a 1-bedroom in a metro area, like a downtown area, compared to having a 7-bedroom in the suburbs, you have a different product for different people who are going to be doing different things and utilizing your space in different ways. And so I don't feel that all Airbnbs are the same. They're all different products. So you want to choose a product that you enjoy hosting. If you enjoy traveling nurses and you enjoy, business travelers, host them. If you enjoy bigger properties where you want families to come in and gather and create those memories, then you can create a product for them. And so you want to be conscious of, if you're going to put fun things in your property, people are going to want to do fun things. Choose a location that's right for the product. You don't want to be in Rio Rancho or a very clustered neighborhood where the neighbors are going to be very upset that there's a bunch of work trucks outside or there's a bunch of too many cars on the street because you're hosting a 7-bedroom home. You want to make sure that you're putting these products in the right place so you avoid as many issues as possible. And then intentional design that appeals to your ideal guest is super important. Like I said, fun properties are people are going to want to have fun. So you can't get upset if there's beer spilt or there's popcorn left all over the floor if you have a popcorn machine. So make sure that you're intentional with your design on who you want to host and what those people are going to want to do in that property is going to be based off of the design. Thoughtful amenities that draw in the right kind of travelers. Again, if you have neon lights like I do, expect people to have gatherings. I don't allow parties, but I do host up to 20 people in one of my properties. And so with that, I have to make sure that I'm okay with what could happen with 20 people, two families getting together, a baseball team getting together, or any other people that I host in the property of what can happen. If you're going to host kids, spills will happen, right? So having procedures for that is going to be super important. You can't get upset when you want to host all these people and then, nickel and dime and get upset and take it so personal that people spilt some beer on your carpet or people left popcorn in the popcorn machine, um, any of those types of items. Guest vetting and red flag prevention. If you don't want to deal with large gatherings and you have a really expensive carpet and these other items in the house that you um, don't want to get ruined, or you might think they might get ruined, or they're very sentimental to you, don't put them in there. And set limits to your guest count. Just because you have a 5-bedroom doesn't mean that you need to maximize the guest count if you don't want to. Make sure you're comfortable with the amount of people that you want. The more people you have, the more fun people are going to try to have. And so you need to be conscious of that. And you also want to avoid locals from hosting parties by not hosting locals within your city or within your town if you're really concerned about those parties. Because if you have a property that's a 7-bedroom and you rent it to someone and it's located in Santa Fe and you rent it to someone in Santa Fe, there needs to be a vetting process, okay? Those people that are from the town or city that you're in have a lot more ability to invite their friends, invite their family, and for them to overuse that guest count. So I reinforce all the time what my guest count is and let them know that their booking would be canceled if they went over that guest count. Right away, I'm setting the bar. I'm drawing an expectation and a line in the sand of, hey, I'm paying attention. I'm a conscious host. I'm not a set it forget it host, and there are consequences to violating those house rules. Um, and so that's really contains to a lot of locals just because they have the network to have those parties, right? And to me, my first question is, if you're a local and you're renting out my property, what are you doing in my property that you don't want to do in your own, right? And sometimes it's has ill intent, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's as simple as, I live in an apartment and I have family coming into town and we want a place to gather. So just going a little step further, especially when you see that they're from the same state or the same city that you're from or that your property's from. In spotting red flags early in the communication. If you don't ask questions, you're not going to get a feel for the guest. And so I like to ask questions when I start seeing things like they're locals, or if I have a property that, it hosts a lot of people. What are you in town for? What brings you to Albuquerque? What brings you to Rio Doso? I like to ask those questions because a lot of guests will give me the information that I'm looking for, but I also don't want to come in as a threat or, I'm hounding them and an investigator of some sort. So I ask very casually, what brings them to the city that they're in. And what do you do when you spot the red flag? You have those follow-up questions. A new profile comes in. Somebody books a 7-bedroom and it says 1 guest. Those types of things are perfect examples to be able to follow up with a question. hey, can you update your guest count? Or is it just you by yourself in this 7-bedroom, right? And being able to ask questions, trust your gut, and communicate with them. The more communication you get from them, usually, the better the experience is, I feel. Also, minimum stay and age. You have the option to set those minimum nights. You don't want to just have a 7-bedroom home that has a 1 night minimum for Friday on a holiday weekend. So you want to be able, without some sort of strong vetting process. I'm comfortable after all these years and having my systems down with hosting 1 night on a Friday. If my booking came from Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and my Fridays, what we call orphan day, it's all by itself. I'm comfortable with that because I know that once somebody books that Friday, I'm going to then go through my process of asking them what they're in town for, notifying them right away when they book, hey, if you go over the guest count, your booking would be canceled. And right there, they have the option to cancel right then and there. If they want to cancel right then, I'll give them a full refund, even if it's a last minute booking, to avoid the situation. And I'm setting the expectation right away, right when they book. So I'm comfortable with that. Age as well. You can put that setting in Airbnb and other platforms of what that minimum age is. If you have a 21-year-old booking the property and they are looking to have a 21st your birthday party, it might not be the right person for you to host. That's going to take more work, higher risk. And so you want to make sure you have those minimum stays and minimum age requirements on your Airbnb settings. Choose a location right for the product. We kind of went over that. You don't want to have a property that you host a lot of people with no parking. You don't want to have it around neighbors or a neighborhood that has an HOA that's going to be upset about having different people in and out all the time. Some neighborhoods don't want to see big work trucks. I host a lot of contractors that are coming into town, working on the fiber optics, working on the upgrades of electrical, all types of growth that's happening in Albuquerque. I'm hosting those contractors. And so they have big trucks, big loud diesels, sometimes trailers that leak. And so you want to make sure that you have setting the right expectation and putting the right product in the right area. Asking the right questions is super important. Like I said, follow up. Don't be afraid to engage with your guests. They're on Airbnb for that for that reason a lot of times, and that's why they didn't book a hotel. Is they want that personality to come through. And to do a lot of these things, having these safety tools in place. I use Ring to monitor all my properties. I think those cameras have the best integration. I think there's tons of camera systems that you can use. I think anything that you can check from your phone that has motion detection. I do enjoy that Ring now monitors 24/7 for upgraded plan. Being able to monitor from your phone or anywhere in the world is super important. And so making sure that you have a system that you can see anywhere, you have to have that to be able to host remotely. I think even as locally, you need that as well. And having the cameras in the right location, right? You don't want to just have the Ring camera at the front door and nothing in the backyard, that's where people are going to be gathering at as well. I use August smart locks for my keyless access. There's Schlag and a bunch of other lock systems that you can use. I think what's important is the automation for creating keys for guests so that each guest has its own access code or virtual key. And also being able to see people come in and out and log that in. I think it's hard to have a party if you don't have a lot of traffic coming in and out. And so being able to see the door open and close a bunch of times is another piece of information that will help know that you're having a party or not. And a noise monitor system. That's number one. Noise monitor systems, I use Noise Aware. There's also Minute. There's different ways that they monitor to try to prevent parties. Noise Aware monitors the decibel levels. So I can set a decibel level within a room. For example, like the front room where I think people are going to gather. I can set that decibel level to wherever I want. And then if that noise decibel level maintains for over 10 minutes higher than what I have it set it for, I'll get a notification, my team will get a notification, and now we can go into that party protocol and see if it's a party or if it's three girls getting ready to have a great night and they have the music too loud, or a movie on too loud, right? So it's the very first defense, I feel like, and it's super important to make sure you have a noise monitor. It does not record the noise. It's just measuring the decimal levels. And I think one of the overlooked items is a nosy neighbor. I think making friends with your neighbors and people in the neighborhood is super important because they're the first ones to see the cars pulling up. They're the first ones to see all these people gathering or hear them, right? And so maintaining a good relationship with them and let them know, hey, I'm not wanting to disrupt the neighborhood either. And so if you see any of these signs of a party, please notify me. Here's my cell phone number. It goes a really, really long ways. And most people are willing to help and they'd rather you take care of the problem than having to call the cops or something bad happen, right? So never overlook that. And also, we always prepare for the worst. Ensure that there's property insurance in place. There's tons of property insurances now for short-term rentals. I would recommend getting a policy not just for homeowners and not depending on Airbnb's policy. They're making everything harder and harder to claim and collect through them. And so I don't even count their policy at all anymore. It's way different than it was when I first started 8 years ago. And so there's lots of other companies that you can go through to have a very specific short-term rental policy. And some bigger insurance companies are actually starting to offer that as well, where it was a lot of smaller insurance companies, but I know Hathaway does it now, Farmers, and a couple other larger companies as well. Also, collecting multiple guest contact information is super important for the party protocol because you want to try to get a hold of guests, right? And if they're having a party, you want to have multiple phone numbers. So I always ask, for any other guests' phone numbers in the beginning so that I know that if I can't get a hold of the main person who booked, that there's other people in the household that I can text, call, and try to get a hold of to resolve a party or any emergencies, or just keep that constant communication going through, right? So make sure in the very beginning collecting multiple guest contact information and creating an emergency protocol for all situations. I think this goes outside of just parties, but when something happens to one of your properties, you should always be prepared for that. So this is my party protocol we're going to go through. Everybody will be getting a copy of this at the end of this webinar, and you guys are welcome to download it, save it, edit it, whatever you guys want to do with it. But like I said from the beginning, the noise sensor alert is kind of your first line of defense, right? And so once that noise sensor is activated, you will receive an alert from your smart noise monitoring system, either email or text message or both. I recommend having that go out to multiple people, your co-hosts, your cleaners, or if you have staff, if you have an assistant, whoever that is, because you just might be missing it. And so making sure that notification goes out to multiple people. The first thing that I do when I receive that notification is I go to my cameras. I go to my cameras, and with Ring, I can listen through the cameras, which I think is super important because with me being able to listen, I can hear if the noise is outside the door, right? So if I have a camera on the front of my door and the door is shut, I shouldn't be able to hear through my camera a movie or a party or any music, right? So I look at the camera and I click on the microphone to hear, and if I could hear a movie, then I kind of first guess I'm looking at, okay, maybe it's just they're playing a movie really loud, right? So listening to that and then going back through and trying to see how many people are coming through that property and what are they bringing, right? Usually when there's a party thrown, you can see lots of people coming in and out, and they're bringing the beer, they're bringing the boom box, and they're getting ready to tear your place up, right? So being able to stop that and prevent that before it gets crazy is super important. So checking all your cameras and seeing what's going on. If you have cameras in your backyard and you only host 10 people and there's 15 people gathering in your backyard, right away you're able to realize that there is a party and there is ill intent in going on with the property. Visual asset assessment, usually crowding and commotion. I also check the smart locks. What has this door been going open and shut? I've had properties in the past that were located in apartment complexes, and they wouldn't let me change the front side of the door, the doors. So I wasn't allowed to put a Ring camera in front. I wasn't allowed to use a smart lock that changed the front part of the door. I wasn't even allowed to have really like any decorations or anything like that for the holidays. It was very, very strict. And so they wanted everything very uniformed when you walk down the hallway. So the smart locks were super important for me. So I was able to see if at 2 in the morning people are going in and out of that door, that there's maybe something I need to look into and communicate with the guests. And once you do that, you're able to come through and say, okay, cool. Based off of this information right now, do I just need to notify, the guest and say, hey, I have an automatic message written out that says, hey, I hope you're enjoying the property. Can you please, my noise monitor went off. I'm letting them know I have noise monitors. It is in my listing as well. We're trying to prevent the parties, right? We want people to know we do have um, monitoring and we do pay attention to things, that we are active host. That's going to really get a lot of people to say, I'll try another Airbnb where this host isn't going to be paying attention, right? And so having that is important. That message goes out, lets them know, hey, can you turn down the music? Can you turn down the movie? I don't see a party going on, so I'm just sending out that message to everybody. I don't see any excess guest count. No violations besides they have loud music, asking them to turn it down. And then if I do go through and I confirm that there is a party, you know, that's different, right? So now we're going through and we're communicating through Airbnb first. We always want to communicate through Airbnb because we want to make sure that it's all documented for the report that we might have to do with Airbnb, okay? So my first message goes out through Airbnb. I wait 15 minutes. If I don't have a response, and my noise monitor is still going off, then I'm texting the guest directly, right? Same message, you copy and paste it, throw it in a text message to the guest and any other guests that you have their numbers for. And then after that, we want to go, there's usually a second noise notification that will go out. If that noise problem has not been rectified within 15 or 20 minutes, you'll get another notification. And once that second notification comes into me, I know that that noise has been constant at that level for so long, then that's when I kind of go into my second phase and escalate it, right? I'm calling the guest directly, not just text messaging. And then if I can't get a hold of them, I'm calling any additional guests that I have their information for, as well as a follow-up Airbnb message, right? We want to document, hey, I text you. I just wanted to see if you got my text message about the noise, or they don't answer the phone. Then I reassess that inside of the messaging with Airbnb and say, hey, gave you a call, haven't heard back from you. And if there's an actual party going on, you know, and I can't get a hold of anybody, then that's when, you know, I'm not getting messages on Airbnb, not getting text messages, no one's answering their phone, people may be drunk, not paying attention. Then I kind of go into using my camera system as a way of communication, right? Ring has a siren that you can use to gather attention, and I can also use the microphone to speak through those cameras, right? So if there is a party, most likely there are people going in and out of the front door. There's people on the front porch smoking cigarettes or marijuana, and so I'm waiting for somebody to come in or out so that I can say, hey, this is the homeowner. I need you to tell the host to call me right away, or I'm going to call the cops, right? Backyard, that's where they're going to be gathering. If you have a hot tub, if you have cool games, right? That camera back there, make sure that camera in the backyard is a microphone two-way camera as well, so you can have those communications, right? And being able to use that siren, I think, is super awesome because people are drunk, people have their music really loud, and you're able to come through and really capture their attention once you have to escalate that far. Another technique that I've used in the past too is locking the door. Usually they're leaving the front door open, and as soon as it's shut, I lock it. And what happens is that people can't just come in and out without now putting the code in. That gives me the opportunity to then, speak to them through the camera. It kind of is a pattern disruptor, because then they have to call their friend and get the code. They have to knock on the door. So anytime I have a chance to lock that door, I do. You can also disable their access, right? If you have a smart lock and you're able to you can't get a hold of anybody, you're able to disable their keypad access and then lock the door. They can still come out of the property, right? But what we're doing is we're trying to disrupt the pattern so that they can contact us and we can get a hold of somebody. On-site action, right? You can dispatch and always have a plan in place of who can I send to this property, right? In a case of a really big emergency, I can't get a hold of anybody, and my sirens aren't working, or they're not in the backyard, they're only in the house, whatever the case is, having somebody on the ground that you can dispatch, either a cleaner, a maintenance man, a friend, a neighbor, somebody that you can go over there to observe and let those guests know that you are onto them, that people do need to leave, and I threaten with the cops all the time. I've never had to call the cops. My protocol works pretty well, but I do threaten. I have had threatened before, that I will be calling the cops, and that's usually most people are pretty scared and they will just disperse and leave. Yeah, the psychological leverage, letting guests know that neighbors have been alerted, the authorities will be called, that they're violating the Airbnb policies, they're violating your house rules, and before you have to get to the point where you're actually canceling their reservation, right? You can call the police if you need. I know a lot of hosts don't want to deal with these situations and they just call the cops, and you can do that. But sometimes your local cops aren't going to take it serious. They're not going to get there in time. And so we need to take responsibility as a host and as a business owner into having our own protocols and not thinking that the police are there just to come break up parties at your Airbnb, right? They don't work for you. They're definitely something you can use. And yes, your taxes are going to them. I get that. But hopefully we would love our police to be working on larger, more threatening crimes, and trying to protect our business, especially if we weren't taking the right steps to prevent this party, right? Also, it could backfire on you, right? If you call the cops too many times, the city might look at it and say, well, maybe you don't deserve a short-term rental license, right? And so we don't. I always try to avoid that if possible, because I don't want to ever be looked at as a nuisance to the neighborhood or the city. Post-party procedures, right? You've gotten to the point to where you've threatened them, they leave, they disperse, all the cars start zooming off. What's next, right? I always try to notify my cleaners and my maintenance team as soon as I know there's a real party going on. Hey, there's a party going on. I'm working on, dispersing it right now. Just be prepared. Do we need to hire extra cleaners? Is my maintenance man available tomorrow? Do we have a turn tomorrow that we need to have ready, at 3 o'clock for check-in? What does my team need to do? You don't want to ever just have your team just walk in blind into a place where there was just a party thrown. And you always want to make sure that once everybody's dispersed, that you have somebody to lock up the property, or you're able to lock it up remotely thoroughly. If you don't have remote locks in your back door, you don't know if those people are going to come back, right? People sometimes will disperse because they think the cops are coming or neighbors are calling the cops, and they'll leave and they'll forget the purse, and they'll forget, the alcohol that they brought, or they'll forget something and they want to get back into the property. So we really want to make sure that the property is cleared of everybody. We don't want no drunk people in the closet that fell asleep, and we want to make sure that the property is cleared. So I always try to send a maintenance person or a cleaner or whoever's I can send on site to go over there, make sure the property is cleared and the property is locked up properly. At that time too, any video or photos with timestamp will be super helpful for your claim through Airbnb. And make sure you take them off the locks if you do cancel their booking. Assess and damage, document and damages. Taking pictures of everything. Sometimes, you go in there and it just looks messy. Things don't look broken, but we really want to make sure we're touching everything and we're playing with everything to make sure that nothing is just going to fall apart. I've seen it before where, the table looks like it's not broken and then you barely touch it and the whole thing just falls apart, right? So we want to make sure that the buttons on all the arcade systems are working and just everything is checked for damages, because it's really hard to go back after their initial claim to try and get those things taken care of through insurance or through Airbnb. More pictures, the better, for a lot of reasons. So documentation is super important, and not just documentation as far as in physically at the property, but we also want to make sure that we're taking any screenshots or any recordings that we have from our Ring cameras. We need to make sure we're downloading that right away. Noise monitor activities, we're downloading that right away so that we can have that ready for our claim with Airbnb and our insurance if we have to. Once you gather all that evidence, you want to contact, Airbnb and your short-term rental insurance so that we can start that process, which can be a little bit of a headache and lengthy, but that's what we signed up for. We're always trying to prevent these things, but as a business owner, we have to prepare for the worst, and hopefully we never have to actually go through that process, right? I've hosted tens of thousands of people over the last 8 years, and I've only had to make 2 insurance claims ever, which is pretty successful, I feel like. And so a lot of that time was during COVID. COVID was kind of crazy. And so you want to make sure that if you take the right steps to prevent, that's going to be the key, so you don't have to do all this paperwork and go through the insurance. So recap and takeaway, guys. Let's talk about the solutions and tools. Sharing any of your bad stories with others. Like I said, you're going to be getting this party protocol in a PDF after this, and I wanted to kind of go into any Q&A. Also, over here on the slide, what I have is my Instagram. Sometimes I post cool stuff and educational stuff about Airbnbs on there. And also, what's really important is the New Mexico Short-Term Rental Association website, which is the second QR code on the right. That's where you can register and get to these webinars and get all the bonus material, if you are a member. So if you're a member of the New Mexico Short-Term Rental Association, you're able to come through, participate in these webinars, and get all of my SOPs and PDFs that will really save you guys all the big headaches that I've already went through. And I think it'll be great. We are planning on having a few more mixers this year as well. So if anybody has any questions, you guys are welcome to send me a message on Instagram, or you guys can email me. You guys can email me at vince@505homesolutions.com. Send me over an email. I'm always here to help out and continue on with any of these webinars. The next one will probably be in 2 months. Right now, we're looking at every other month. So any questions, you guys let me know. I hope that this provided a lot of value for you guys, and be on the lookout for the PDF.